Spring is in the air and we're getting ready for another beautiful day outside by cooking up an awesome breakfast here. The temperatures have been getting into the 50s, things are starting to melt, and we've got some projects that we're going to be working on outside in anticipation of some cool spring things we're going to be doing. We are going to be whipping up some chicken fried ptarmigan. So instead of a milk egg mixture, I have some kefir here we're going to be using. We've got a little bit of flour with some herbs and spices, paprika and sage, and then we have our little ptarmigan breasts here. We're going to do 5 this morning. We are going to tenderize them, and then we'll get them in the flour, the egg wash, back in the flour. We'll fry them up.
Oh yeah. Yeah, you're almost there. Yeah. Yeah, you're good. I have some really bad news.
What?
You put a huge dent in the boat.
Here's the problem. We got 2 boats, 1 trailer. The one we just took off of this one is our G3. It's an 1860. We've had that for quite a few years. And the new one, which is over here, this is a Pro Jet 470 jet raft. The boat is here behind all of our stuff. That's the motor for it. That's a Tohatsu 6040 jet. We're gonna try to see if we can make it so we can run this boat on that trailer and then also the other one and just interchange them depending on where we're going and what boat we're gonna be using. There's a couple modifications I think we're gonna have to make to get this one to fit how we want it on there and securely and safely travel with it. First things first, let's get everything out and see if we can get it on the trailer. It's pretty good. If you tied down the front, we didn't even raise this up a tiny bit because this doesn't hit on ours either to there. I think this will work. We've got the boat all filled up with air. I don't have the best system, honestly, for anything with this boat yet since it's so new to us. One of the valves, for some reason on these Pro Jets, the floor valve is different than all the other valves. So I've got some valves I got to get my hands on and get a good kit set up for airing it up. A lot of things are kind of running through our minds out here as far as transporting this boat. We've got a couple trips in particular that are really far away, far, hundreds and hundreds of miles. With a boat trailer like this, kind of just an open trailer that you would put a boat on, they're great for aluminum boats or fiberglass boats, but when you start hauling boats like these, which are not more delicate, but they can get damaged from road debris and things like that, the bottom of this trailer is just completely open. So seeing the boat on the trailer here, it's definitely a concern on longer trips, especially with that new van. It's lifted, it's got big tires, it doesn't have any mud flaps on it. I noticed that it kicks up a lot more road debris when you're going down the highway. And the main thing we're trying to figure out by getting this boat on here is the jet motor. So the transom on these boats, it's not like a full rigid, connected into the boat. It's wooden with aluminum, but it's all connected to this boat, which is an inflatable raft. So they're not the strongest back here. Well, it's not that they're not strong, it's that you want to support them. When you put the jet motor back here, it's heavy. It's like a 200-pound plus motor. We want something that the foot can sit on. That way when you're driving down the road and you're hitting bumps and you're bouncing, it's just solid and it's not shaking this whole back end of the boat around. We have hauled this the one time we took it out on the deck over trailer. It does great on the trailer. The problem with that is the deck over and launching a boat is really difficult because you can't just back it all the way into the water and then float your boat off. The boat trailer, you back it into the water, or if you're loading up, you put it in the water, you drive the boat on, you're out of there. We have had our eyes out for a used snow machine trailer. They're similar to the deck over in that there's a deck, so it protects the bottom of the boat when you're driving down the road, and then also there's a front guard on there. We're looking for a pretty specific size. We haven't found one. The good thing about those ones too is they are a lot lower to the ground, so you can actually put your trailer into the water and unload your boat that way. And it doubles as a snow machine trailer, which would be awesome because every time we take ours out, we have to tow that huge deck over behind us that weighs 3,000 pounds before you even put anything on it. We're just gonna flip this around, bring the tractor in here and grab that motor, mount it back on the back end here since we're getting ready for boating season, and we'll see if there's anything we can makeshift or fasten back here so we can use this trailer if we want to use it. It's a good looking boat.
Yeah.
Sneak peek. What are these?
I think everyone knows what these are.
What are these for? classified as a 15-foot boat, but...
No, it's over 15.
Okay, that's why I'm measuring it.
I'm actually noticed with the roller bar things.
Okay, so 15 is actually right here.
Okay, so 15-foot boat then.
15 is right here to the actual tip of the back right here. That's exactly 16 feet.
I think last time you may have had this on first and then you pounded the screws in.
Without equipment. So if you do the foot flat, it's gonna sit all the way back there.
I don't know if we're gonna get it flat, to be honest, but I mean, you could with some extra blocks.
Otherwise,
You could easily rest it like that right there. Just maybe not all the way, but partial of the way, yeah.
So there's two options. You come something from here, right? Which you'd probably have to do some sort of metal because that's quite a bit of weight. This is what I was talking about earlier. The motor, which you saw earlier moving with the tractor, is extremely heavy. It's got no support. We did come up with a solution that we're gonna do. So we're gonna get some of these right here, similar to these ones. These are for the bunks. These are the brackets. We're gonna put an adjustable one in the center on this cross member and then way up in there. And then we're gonna basically build some more of these out of 2x6s. We're gonna use pressure treated. We're gonna do the felt and it's gonna be adjustable and it'll sit right here and we'll be able to put it exactly where it's gonna maybe go up a little higher than this, take some of the stress off. But we are gonna have to gather some parts to do that. So this is it for today. We got the motor on here. Things are looking good. We got it inflated. We're gonna push it out of the way. We're pulling the Polaris in next.
Remember putting that on?
I don't think I got leaky boot on that side. I got squeaky front end on that one.
Wait, how weird, how,
What?
those have never been replaced since well.
They're thicker. This is a replaced one.
She's leaking.
Who?
Right there. This little son of a right in there, you don't see that?
That?
Yeah, what's that?
That's what we're replacing.
Do you want anything from the grease right now?
Fluid in here looks a little milky.
It got water in it somehow?
That's what it looks like.
How is that possible?
Well, can we put the new one in? It won't leak. Let's try. Taking care of the old Polaris today. This is a good machine. It's a 2013. You can't get the 6-wheelers anymore, so we got to take care of it. We're working on the back end today on the rear set of axles on this side. The little seal where the axle goes into the differential has been leaking, so we've got the new seal here. Not too bad getting the old one out. Fluid in that rear end. It looks a little bit like milky, they call it, and that means that water got in there somehow. I don't think I'm going to drain it. I think we're just going to top it off with fluid because it is a little bit low. Let's pop this new seal in. We'll get everything taken care of, and then we're going to replace a boot on the opposite side axle. How do people hit this? Look at that. It's like
You hammer it?
you can't even get a. You can't even. They had the electric grease gun for that job, huh?
What would be your tool of choice if you only had one? And I know that's a tricky one for you.
I guess like vice grips or one of these maybe. I don't know.
Oh, you wouldn't pick your Leatherman?
Oh, like that? My tools? Yeah, I guess the Leatherman. Rear axle is back together. It didn't come too easy. We were trying to get this part pounded off, and a video I was watching online of a Polaris tech doing it, he just put a chisel there and popped it and it came right out. Ours, I think maybe was like seized on or something, but what helped in the end was instead of beating it down with just this axle sitting like this, I tweaked it to the side a couple different ways and hit it a few times and then it popped right off. We've got the new boot on there, and that's kind of like the problem with having these boots ripped is dirt gets in there, water gets in there, and then your axles, they start to fall apart. These Polaris CV axles, they aren't like the strongest things in the world because they have a bunch of like ball bearings in there and stuff. And as you're articulating and you know, off-roading and whatnot, they get a lot of hard use on them. So we're gonna get this one put back in, get things cleaned up. We'll put a little bit of differential fluid in the back end, and the Polaris will be good to go. Yeah, it's like the heavy duty stuff.
Push it up from here and then put it down. She wants to Whoa, that's legit. Look at that.
Our parts have arrived and we've gotten things taken care of out here on the raft. We started with a pressure treated 2x6. That's what the bunks are already made of on this boat trailer. And then we wrapped it in a felt fabric, used a carpet adhesive to glue it down. That part turned out really well. And then we used these brackets, which I got an extra one right here. The kit came with 4, we only needed 2. And these are adjustable on the rails on the trailer. So you can go up and down, you can do them sideways. And then they've got a little top piece where you can kind of angle them how you want them. Unfortunately, the U-bolts it came with, it says it was for the 3-inch trailer diameter, I think. They're really tight, so I barely got the nut on there on these. We've got it adjusted, I believe, where we're gonna need it. So not only does it give us the support up the center of the boat, if you watch the foot right there, let me lower it down. That's what we were after. This big heavy motor is now resting on that 2x6, which has that bracket and it goes right down to the frame. So when we're going down the road and this thing's bouncing around, it's not wearing on the transom and you know, trying to rip the motor off the back of the boat. Still a few more things we have to do to the boat. The top tubes, you know, the side ones, I've got a small leak in each one of those and I found it, so I gotta fix that. I ordered some oil and a filter. We're gonna change the oil. I'm getting pretty excited for the boating season.
We have a fairly unpleasant spring day on our hands. It's a perfect day to give you a seed room tour. Here it is, ladies and gentlemen. We have a full house. We're gonna be covering a lot today, all the plants that we have in here, how the room has been functioning. We started seeds less than 2 months ago. We're now into April. I've been spending a considerable amount of time here. And this is primarily where you will find me. This is our little L-shaped workbench. This is where I do like sowing, transplanting, all of that good stuff. And I have found that this amount of space is like totally ample. It's perfect for me. I can set multiple trays on here or have a bunch of little pots if I'm transplanting up. We've been gardening for about 10 years and we have never had a proper space or a room solely dedicated to this purpose. So it's been absolutely fantastic. Usually we'll have the plants inside the cabin and it's a lot drier in there. And we'll also have to have like all the seeds, the soil in there. And you may already know this, but we have one table that we use for a lot of different functions. So it's like our editing table, it's also our kitchen table, and that is where I will usually start seeds. At the end of the day, I'll have to like clean it up because it is messy, as you can imagine, and that's the pro of this room. I can literally leave it like just madness, turn off the lights and walk out. I do try to keep things pretty organized and clean in here. Another beautiful thing about this room is the lights. So we've got the lights up ahead. I actually don't even usually have those on because the lights on the plants themselves are so bright, and with the windows, usually it's very bright in here. This is a cloudy day and it's not bringing in as much sunlight and heating it up in here. The temperature that we're sitting at right now is 60. So pretty good temperature for the plants. I have the thermostat set at 50. Both Eric and I turned the thermostats for the shop and the seed room just down recently. It's probably been like 2 weeks now that the floors haven't even really been turning on with the temperatures we have outside. On this back wall, I have all of our seeds and fertilizers and just other gardening things. We have 3 fans for this whole room. We've got this little dinky guy, but he works great actually because he's movable. He will rotate as well, and I can just plug it in where I want it, or I can fixate it, right on plants if I want to give them like a real aggressive blow of wind. We also have this super awesome one that Eric got for us, very powerful. We were turning that on when it was getting really hot in here. I know I saw it get to like 85 degrees when we were having sunshine come in on a real hot day. It will warm this room up and get pretty humid. And then I have another box fan that I can also just move around, and I can do two things. I can kind of like dry out a concrete spot if I want to do that, or I can just, again, set it on this workspace when I'm done for the day and it will blow across all of the plants. We've got this cool little light that Eric got for us here. I wasn't finding that I was using this beyond February because, again, it's just been so bright in here that my eyes have been loving it. Our cabin is really dark, and even with a headlamp I had a hard time doing seeds in there. Here it's been fantastic. We do plan to put a water tank in this spot. We've left like a nice little area for it. We've got a 55 plastic barrel that we can put there. For now, we have been walking over watering cans, and it's been working out great, to be honest, since it's moist in here. I find that I'm not watering the plants as much as I thought I would. When they were inside a very dry cabin, you know, because of the wood stove, I'd have to water them a lot more. So right now it hasn't been a big issue, but we will probably do something about it in the future. Got this handy little extra brush to collect soil, and then I'm able to put it back in our bin, which is not over here right now. We took it out for this because we wanted Eric to have room to move, but I do have a little soil container here. It's not little at all, it's actually quite large, and that's where I pull my soil from. I was planning on putting 5 racks in here. We have 4 right now. I was thinking a 5th one would fit there, but it wouldn't work out. So we ended up putting this one here. I don't really want this here. What I would like here is a little countertop thing that I can put soil underneath, store a bunch of soil in containers underneath, and then it will just be one little shelf. I will have plants there that, I don't know if they'll stay there year round. I was thinking definitely like winter plants. I'll have lights set up, and I could have some of our herbs and things like that here, maybe even ginger. And that way we wouldn't have to have the soil kind of occupying a large amount of space. Those are some plants that did not pull through. It was lemon verbena and rosemary. They definitely look not alive. These ones are alive right here. We have peppers, tomatoes and peppers actually on the bottom. We've got some leeks, it looks like, some celery, and this is mainly flowers up here, some herbs, fennel. We have going. Up top I have zinnias. I've got 2 seed trays that I just started, so they're just now germinating, I think. Yeah, I see little sprouts already starting in there. And I have some extra Brussels sprouts plants that I started. I like to start those really early because they just take a really long time to get mature. Things look really good in here. I think they look very nice. I would say they are a tad leggy. I pretty much can't figure out a way to get the pepper plants not have a little bit of legginess going on, and I think that's just the nature of starting them in here so early. I don't typically run our lights that low either. The lowest I'll really have them is just a few more inches down here, and when they're first germinating they do need really intense strong light. Needless to say, I've never had an issue with pepper plants like this once we get them in the garden, but it's still a while till we can get them in the garden. So everything I'm doing, I'm making notes. I think, as painful as it is to say, I may have started our peppers and tomatoes a little too early. Dang it, they look fantastic. Look at this guy right here. I mean, except for that little crunchy leaf right there. Black strawberry cherry. We have acquired a new addition to the family, and that is a citrus tree. So this is a calamondin. It is an orange, I believe, but I think it's a little more like the lime. At least that's what the gentleman at the store I bought it from said. So really small little orange looking fruit. Again, I could be wrong. It could actually be green on the outside, but then I think that the fruit on the inside is orange looking. And apparently it's pretty prolific. It's a good choice for us up here in Alaska since it's a citrus plant. I definitely plan on taking very good care of him. I think this is an okay spot for it right now. I also have some pineapple sage. I did not start that from seed. I also picked that up at the greenhouse. I have a very sad lilac that we need to get planted in the garden this year. And then we have lemon verbena here. This is a new plant that I picked up. If it doesn't overwinter here, what I think I'm going to do is just strip it of all its leaves in the winter months, call it good, and get a new one every year. When we first set up the shelves, we were just kind of guessing with the spacing. I believe we had a few of them actually had more shelves than they have right now, so these individual ones. And I had Eric set a few of them up pretty close for seed starting. I figured I would need quite a bit of those, and then as things developed, we did take 2 out and made a little more space for something like this that is bigger now. And just recently, I was actually telling Eric I need a few that are, again, a little bit smaller. So they're not easy to adjust. They're really kind of a pain, especially once you already have things on the shelf. And the lights, you know, we have them fastened in a way that I cannot lower them or, you know, make them higher, right? They're just fixated there. I think as time goes on, we will figure out a better system. So, you know, I'll have designated slots where I can just always start seeds, and then they can go to like a slightly bigger area once they're a little bigger. And on this particular shelf, I have a lot of flowers. I've got violas. I started those early because they take a long time, really slow to germinate as well. We have lemongrass, some tomatoes and eggplants. Those were restarts. I started them again because I didn't feel I had enough the first time around. And then here I have ginger, too much ginger in fact. I'd like to just have a few of those. Too much sweet potatoes, I have quite a few of those. Sweet peas, I don't know why I started these early. Last year I started them the same time I start my regular peas. When I was looking through some guides, it was recommended to start these early. I don't know why I did that, because you can see they just, to me, they seem too big for how far away they are from being planted outdoors. Next I have onions, maybe some shallots. I have a lavender that did successfully overwinter. Although not beautiful, it is still alive. Hopefully she gets outside soon. We have horseradish back here. He's looking really good. Looks like it needs to be watered. And the onions were just due for a trimming, so we got that done. It's haircut day for the onions. I will trim them every so often. These are getting pretty tall again. It looks like those ones in the back are actually hitting the lights. The lights down here are red and blue. I'm not sure why I really chose, or we chose to put them down at the bottom. I will say they're incredibly waterproof, so they're a great option to have really low down, because if water falls, you know, as it drips on these, it won't damage them. My thought process was I would have some older plants down here, bigger plants that maybe didn't need as much light. They really are still just as effective as the ones up top. That's just how we set it up, and that's exactly what we have down here is the older plants. I have some herbs down here that we overwintered. We have tarragon, 2 different varieties, and I also have some lemon balm. And I did restart lemon balm, but Eric said I should probably hang on to these because they do have more energy and they'll probably take off a little quicker. This one also has flowers. I've never had a lemon balm flower, so I thought that was pretty cool. And we've also got artichokes. This is my biggest artichoke. He was started a long time ago. This is Green Globe. This shelf does not have all the lights on it. We are needing to pick 4 more up right in this vicinity. I have the fodder growing just without a light. I don't think it really needs it. There's just so much light here already. I have really figured out such a good solution to this. So when I soak it, this is actually wheat and barley. I soak it overnight, but I will put about a tablespoon or so of bleach, and I will let that first soak for maybe a minute or so. And then I will strain all that out. I'll clean the seeds really well, and then once it's soaked overnight, I will put it out here. It smells wonderful. I don't know why, but it smells like Jolly Ranchers or melon. It has such a good scent to it right now. But for me, this takes more than 7 days or 6 days to actually grow out to nice tall grass for the chickens. It'll be like this thick mat you can pull out for them. It usually takes 8 to 10 for me to get a good batch. I don't know why it takes a little bit longer compared to other folks, but all in all, I'm very excited that I have gotten this down to a pretty good process, reliable. Then I've got their little bowl right here too for feeding them. Up here we have tomatillos, and I have too many of them as well. They look pretty similar, the varieties, so I have been so good with my labeling this year. I've actually been labeling individual little pots. I don't really have an example of that right here, but I did keep them in separate cups. So when you do it that way, you can kind of keep things organized, or when you individually label them up here, there's just no confusion. And I do have a pretty good idea of everything in here and what it looks like, but sometimes when things first start, or just in general when they're adults, they do look really similar. I mean, those look very similar. So maybe with the trained eye, you could tell the difference between these two. That one's actually Queen of 𝐒𝐤𝐿𝐴𝐿𝐼, I think is how you say it. And then this is a green tomatillo. We have some celeriac and celery. Looks like I have some other restarts right there. That's why they're a little bit smaller. Up top, we have peppers. We've got giant cabbage, the OS cross. Those are looking mighty fine. And a bunch more flowers. This seed room probably has 30% flowers in here. A few years ago, I made the mistake of starting some flowers because I wanted to venture. I feel like the vegetable gardening wasn't enough. Flowers are just so gorgeous. I really couldn't imagine having a garden without them. So I put a lot of energy and time into flowers. It looks like I actually need to get in here and cut some of the extras. Sometimes a plant, a flower, you can have them grouped and they'll still do okay. In general, if you have just one plant, it's not competing for resources, so it will do better on its own. And I've just got to get in here. These particular plants, I wouldn't want them to have two in a pot. So I need to come in here and snip the other guys. Down here, we have a bunch of sweet potatoes. These don't have any light on them. I don't think they need it right at the moment. Ideally, I'd probably have some on them, but I needed to make some more space in here. And they're sweet potatoes. We did have aphids find us. So this is Alaska and these are sweet potatoes. And that is why some aphids have figured that out. In general, aphids like the growing center or like the more delicate parts of the plant. It's probably been 3 weeks or so since we've had them. I've been keeping a really close eye on them and doing mostly hand picking, which is not super, it's not like the best way to get rid of aphids. Actually, I've been like looking at some right now in here. There weren't any yesterday, so they're crazy. They just, if they see you coming, they'll jump ship and jump into the soil. And I have a few tactics to kind of handle them. First and foremost is don't grow things that don't belong where you live. You know, they only go for weak plants. That's the first thing. I do want to grow sweet potatoes, and I have found that certain sprays work really well. I'll make up a mixture of essential oils. I kind of have different ones that work, but rosemary, oregano, mint, there's a few others. If you mix those with just a teeny tiny bit of soap and water and you spray them on the plants every so often, you know, you got to be pretty diligent with it. It will usually really reduce their numbers. You can also use neem oil, and I have used that and I do like it. It just needs it to be done where you like apply it and then you kind of put something else on the plant in between. If you get too much neem oil coating on there, then the plants can't actually, I don't know if it's breathe, but the plants will suffer. And that's why that's not my favorite approach to work with aphids. You can actually see some on here right now. Had a bunch of babies. The last thing that works really well is this Cuban oregano. The gentleman that we picked up some of those tropical plants from, he has a bunch of this and he swears that it works really good for this kind of stuff. And I did take his advice and I took a few of the leaves and I kind of like crunched them up because it's really thick. It's not like normal oregano. It's got like a real thick, fat, fuzzy leaf, and you can just crunch it up in your hands to liquid. And I did this to every single sweet potato, and I took them out and I rubbed it like all over them, especially those growing centers. It works for a few days, but I think aphids they're in this like cycle where maybe some of the babies survive, or again, I don't really quite know how it works, but eventually they do kind of pop back up. I can imagine that we're probably going to have some issues with this once we get these into the greenhouse. But if you can get your hands on Cuban oregano, it works very well. Down here we have peppers and eggplants. The eggplants look really, really pretty. We're trying a few different varieties this year. These plants are getting there in maturity, so I have them on a fertilizer schedule. Usually, you know, when you first start a seed, you don't at all have to fertilize the plants until they get several set of adult leaves. At least I found that to be true. So I have like a light fish fertilizer is what I'll use. I'll just add some of that into a watering can and give them a good dousing. Watering has been a breeze in here. So easy, mainly too because of the concrete. So I don't have to worry how messy I am when I water. And I have two different ways I'll do it. Sometimes I will pull the tray out just a little, like halfway, and water the back ones and get these front plants. Other times I will actually take the whole tray off, set it down, and water it. I especially do that for the higher we go. I do have a little stool that I can use, but I just find it easier that way. I can assess how dry they are if I actually pull them all the way out and set them down and water them first. These are a lot of young plants. I have flowers, herbs. I have some kale because kale is a little slower growing than some of the other plants in that family. And it looks like those are starting to germinate. I don't know if that's calendula or what back there. Up here, more flowers. They're definitely taking up a lot of space and a lot of time. It takes me a really long time to actually transplant them from when they're in the little groupings, you know, these little trays. I'll have to individually put them into different pots like this. At least that's my system. They kind of graduate up. These will probably stay in here until they go out. but if something were to get too root bound or develop too many roots in its container, I may put it in a slightly bigger pot if I have space for it. It goes without saying, but this is the most trays, pots, everything I've used this season, and we had a lot of that already. Some people were nice enough to kind of like gift us pots they found at the dumps. You know, I think a lot of times places will put annuals in something like this, so we're making use of everything we have. This is a good example of how close the lights I like to have them if the seeds are just starting to germinate. So we have two that are super close right here, followed by the oldest plants down below. That also can tolerate cooler temperatures as well. So there's a benefit to having the plants down lower if I don't want them to grow as fast, or I want them to kind of feel what they're going to experience outside. That is such a huge thing. When you start plants indoors, they are very protected and they're not really experiencing what a plant would when it's out there, right? Like from wind, rain, maybe snow, the cold, so that drop at night, the really intense sun. And that's why you go through a process called hardening off. So in here, what we're trying to do is just keep those temps, make sure that we're starting to chill them down now, that they're not staying too warm all the time. And I'm also running those fans a lot to really just keep them kind of moving, make sure that they're going to be strong when they get out there. Eric just checked each individual type of light that we have. They are all LED and they all drew pretty much around 40 watts each. So there's 32 in here. Eric told me it is quite taxing. It does use quite a bit of energy, but we have a lot of plants and I take my gardening pretty seriously. Right now the lights are at 14 hours. I'm kind of dropping them back. So we had them at 16, then I dropped them to 15, and I'd like to get them to 12. They are getting a lot of light through the outside, and I can actually see the plants some days kind of gravitate towards the windows because they're getting a more strong light outside, right? But again, just as they get older, they don't need that much light, so we can probably scale it back a little bit. Legginess, as I mentioned, is a sign that the plants aren't receiving enough light, especially when they first start. These guys right here, these are Brussels sprouts, and I think they look awesome. Those were started a long time ago. We also have more onions down here, maybe shallots, and then more tomatoes. Lots and lots of beautiful, lovely tomatoes. I tend to have a lot going on, and I think that my mind is stronger than it is, but I often forget. Having a little book in here has been super helpful to jot things down. I've actually even forgotten to write some things down in here, but I've tried to catch it. And so I have, like, when I started plants, I have notes about them, like if they didn't germinate well or something, or hey, I started these way too early or something like that. And I can just jot little things down to myself. It's been super useful. We also have a calendar, which I was at first writing things down, but I think this last week or two I've kind of forgotten to. But again, super useful, especially when you're looking back and you're like, when did I start that last year? It's just helpful when you have so much at this scale going on, at least for me. Things that we haven't started yet is warm stuff and actually cool stuff. So things that grow really quick, certain cabbages, lettuces, broccolis, and hot stuff for me, squash, cucumbers, anything that will directly grow like a green bean or root crops, carrots, things like that. I'm not going to start any of that in here. So there is still some room to add those other plants when we get to that point. I'm going to kind of judge that based upon when we can get our work done in the greenhouse, and also outside when the snow starts to melt a little bit more, and I can tell as it's warming up in the season. The drain that we put in has been wonderful. It's kind of unfinished right at this point, and this is how the floor looks a lot of the time. It may sometimes be a little wetter if I've watered, and I have a broom that I can kind of sweep dirt to, or I can sweep the water down here. So the concrete it slopes and it will drain, but near the corners, at least those two corners, I have found if I'm watering over there, it will kind of pool up in the corner, and I have to kind of watch that. We've already mentioned the room being much more moist than we anticipated, which has a lot of pluses, but as you can imagine, moistness comes with many drawbacks as well, especially when you're talking about wood. So the wood in here, maybe it wasn't completely dry. It does still look pretty good for the most part, but we put a coating on it that's more interior, so it has no water protection, and I'm pretty sure we're going to change that in the future, maybe like in the late summer when this room's not in use, it's gonna be a pain. Pull some stuff off the walls and treat the wood so it has a much stronger coating on it. Speaking of the walls and moisture, there is this lovely cookie wall on the back. We noticed a little bit of movement, shall I say, a while back, over a month. And we thought that it was just our trim around the doorway kind of bowing. We were like, oh, it's bowing evenly on both sides. And we finally put it together. The room was very high humidity, so 70 plus. It was all the time that high. And I know that mortar can be very porous, and I believe what's happening, was happening quite a bit, was it was soaking in that moisture through the air. Since it was so humid in here all the time, we were keeping the door closed. Like I mentioned, we saw a little bit of movement in the wall. Not sure how we're gonna be able to fix that, but we're not too worried about it at this point in time. And the solution to it was just leaving the door open. That just immediately sucks so much moisture out. It's 57% right now, which is a little bit high. I think we got it down a little lower than that since the shop is so dry, and it also achieves that cooler balance that we're looking for, because I don't want these plants to only be exposed to the warm temperatures. All in all, this room has been amazing. We have taken 2 longer trips. We've taken several trips, but they were only a few days. We took 2 trips that were 6 days, and both times it just performed beautifully. Nothing dried out. Everything did well on its own. With the timers, those timers are absolutely fantastic. You know, the electrical, the little power strips, everything's been working great. So the fact that we can have it working when we can still go and enjoy Alaska is awesome. It's also been a very enjoyable space for me to work. And as I mentioned, I do dedicate a lot of time to this. It's not magic how these plants grow. I mean, it is really cool. It is magic in some ways, but it does take a lot of energy on my part, and there's more to come, but I wanted to give you a tour now because things move so fast in here. Before we know it, I feel like these plants are gonna be outside in the outdoor garden. The sun has returned and we are heading outside to do some work, but first we're grabbing a little snack. So we are mixing half of our kefir yogurt with half of this ginger pear ferment. We did this, it was less than a week ago, and it turned out awesome. It's really bubbly, super fermented-y tasting, and it's really good. It doesn't taste too much like ginger at all. So we're gonna mix half in a cup with that half of that kefir. Delicious. So good.
That's how I'm making mine. Little maple syrup, chia, flax, sunflower seeds, and pumpkin seeds. They call this the natural energy drink. Whoa!
Zingy.
Now it's time. Yeah, no, that log's a little too long. Last week we went to go put on some toe boards on the sawmill, and we realized that it wasn't going to work. The sawmill wasn't high enough off the ground. We need to cut one 8x8 beam out of this log right here, and then we're going to cut it down the center. We're going to go with 4-inch thick pieces. We're gonna raise the sawmill up 4 inches. Originally I said it was gonna be 3 that would give us the clearance, but I figured since we're going through all this effort, we might as well just have over enough clearance. As you can see, these logs are heavy. We wanna get those little jacks on here. We're using a bottle jack right now just to get it lifted up. That way the tapered end and that bigger end, the center of the log is basically in the center. We'll be able to get our beam a little bit better out of here. One pull. You take this, put it right here, wedge it.
How do you do that? You just kind of pivot it?
Yes, stick it down in here, and
Like that?
further in. Stick the tip further in. There you go.
I think it's hitting enough. Oops. These were really long ones.
Okay, hold on a second. Let me know when you're ready.
Ready. Yeah. Ooh, it's a pyre.
So now let's make sure we position these
Outside this time
where
around.
we can actually get to them.
You know, I think we did. I'm good on my side. Oh,
That good enough on your side, or a little more?
I hear more. Yeah, that's great. Wouldn't it be so cool to have a kite? My dad liked kites. Remember that? Hey, whoa! Didn't. What are we looking for? Straight left to right?
Yeah.
That's completely straight left to right.
All right, so now I think the best thing to do.
Who's going to be your
But this thing's off the ground, so how do we?
The truck's off the ground or the wood?
Just a little.
How high was it?
It's hard to tell, but just a little.
Still pretty high, is what it's saying. Snow is melting. You alive, little fella? You look alive.
Close. Got her all leveled out using a laser level. It makes a world of difference. I remember when we bought that tool because it was pretty expensive. We originally were using it for the concrete slab for the shop. We have used that thing so many times for just different projects. It's come in really handy. Obviously now the sawmill's sitting up a little bit higher. This used to be 4 inches lower, so there's some adjustment here. I'm gonna loosen these. I'm gonna kick this down a little bit. And then I think we're just about ready to put our toe boards on. We do need to do a little bit of grinding and cut off the bracket that I welded on over there. All right, let's put this down just a hair. This is a little higher than I'd like it, but probably get used to it. That's where we do a lot of cutting right there, so it's actually pretty comfortable. You know what I mean? Like, how are you supposed to get in there and jack it up and everything? The only thing you could do would be
That doesn't seem right to me.
flip this around, and we just swap it this way. it doesn't want to go on that other side.
You don't have it in the right spot. Oh, because it hits the freaking thing.
So let's see if we can. Got clearance everywhere, right? And then that's probably heavy enough to. Look at that, it drops it down automatically. That was a. Went through a lot to get this on. Now we gotta do the other one. I like that. The kit we bought is meant for different sawmills that Norwood offers. This is called the LM. It's called the LM29. It's called the LM29, I believe, but I think I got it on the last year, so it might be called the LM30 now. We're having to do a little modifications, a little tweaking. They wanted it on this side, then I'd have to do it left-handed. That's not gonna work, so we put it on the other side. We've had to flip a few things around. This is called the can't stop. This is when you have like a smaller pieces of lumber, you're cutting like 1x or 2x, and you got a nice square. It wouldn't fit on that side with the jack, so we're gonna move it over one of these little bunks right here. Hopefully that will work, and then we're just gonna figure out where we wanna mount the other one on the far side. Okay, that took a lot longer than I thought. Let's go inside.
Call it quits for today.
Call it quits for the day. Just gotta clean up all our stuff. Hey, they look killer. I'm excited to use those.
You look killer, hun.
Thanks.
We got a lot of junk to clean up.
For dinner tonight, we are having homemade raviolis with butternut, pumpkin, and Kefir cheese filling. How delicious does that sound? And then we're gonna cook them in some brown butter with herbs. Okay, so I'm just gonna cut it a little, so I can overfill them a little more next time. You can try this too, so it's like you go forward. Just need some manpower. Bon appetit! This looks absolutely fantastic. Eric did a great job, and we are going to enjoy this dinner. Thank you, man. Sauteed and brown butter. Those are thick noodles.
Look how orange it is.
Yeah, real vibrant. I would definitely put more cheese in it. You'd always think you're gonna overfill them than underfill them. I've never underfilled something.
Yeah,
I've been like,
weird.
where's the more filling?
Man.
See how hard it is to get thin dough? I rolled that as thin as I could, and it's still like thick.